Hey everybody, Leon Chiva here, and welcome to the channel. You know, we talk a lot about the big names in the classic car world, the Mustangs, the Camaros, the E-Types, the 911S, and don't get me wrong, those are fantastic machines, truly iconic. But sometimes, the brightest stars cast the biggest shadows, and hiding in those shadows are some real automotive treasures. Cars that, for one reason or another, just didn't get the spotlight they deserved back in their day. These are the unsung heroes, the hidden gems that offer incredible history, unique character, and often a fantastic driving experience without necessarily breaking the bank, though some are climbing up there now. Today, we're gonna pull the covers off some of these underrated classics. We'll dive into what made them special, who they were up against when they first rolled off the assembly line, and what their story is now in the world of restoration and collecting. It's amazing what you find when you start looking beyond the usual suspects. These cars have soul, they have stories, and they represent a fascinating slice of automotive history that deserves to be celebrated. We're talking innovative engineering, beautiful designs that maybe were a bit ahead of their time, or simply cars from manufacturers that didn't have the marketing muscle of the big boys. So buckle up, because we're going on a journey to explore some truly remarkable vehicles that might just surprise you. These are the cars that make you say, wow, why haven't I heard more about this? Or I remember those, they were cool. We're gonna look at what made them tick, their unique quirks, and why they're now finding a new lease on life with passionate owners and restorers. It's all about appreciating the diverse tapestry of automotive history, and trust me, there are some real jewels out there waiting for their moment in the sun. Let's get started. Alright, let's kick things off with a real American original, the AMC Javelin. Now, when you think of muscle cars from the late 60s and early 70s, your mind probably jumps straight to the Ford Mustang or the Chevrolet Camaro, and for good reason, they were the titans of the pony car wars. But lurking just outside that main battlefield was American Motors Corporation, a smaller company with a big heart and some seriously cool ideas. The Javelin, first launched for the 1968 model year, was AMC's bold statement, their answer to the pony car craze, and boy, did it have its own unique flavor. It wasn't just a copycat, it had a distinct style, a certain robust charm that set it apart. The Javelin came out swinging with a design that was both aggressive and surprisingly sleek. It had that classic long hood short deck proportion, but with unique humped fenders that gave it a really muscular stance. You could get it with a range of engines from a thrifty six-cylinder all the way up to some potent V8s, including the formidable 390 cubic inch unit. This wasn't just about straight-line speed though. AMC, and particularly the Javelin, gained a reputation for better handling than some of its more mainstream competitors. They actually put some effort into making these cars turn and stop as well as they went, which wasn't always the priority for every muscle car back then. One of the Javelin's biggest claims to fame, and something that really boosted its performance credentials, was its success in Trans Am racing. Teaming up with Roger Penske and driver Mark Donohue, AMC took the fight to the big manufacturers on the track. The red, white, and blue Javelins became iconic, and this racing success translated into special editions like the Mark Donohue Javelin SST. This wasn't just marketing fluff. The lessons learned on the racetrack often found their way into the production cars, making them better, more capable machines. It showed that AMC was serious about performance, even if they didn't have the same massive budgets as Ford or GM. So why is the Javelin often considered underrated? Well, part of it is simply the AMC factor. They were always the underdog, perceived by some as the Rambler company even when they were producing exciting cars. Their dealer network wasn't as extensive and their marketing dollars couldn't compete with the giants. This meant that, despite being a genuinely good car, and in some ways superior to its rivals in areas like interior space and handling, it just didn't achieve the same sales numbers or lasting mainstream fame. It was a case of a great product not always getting the widespread recognition it truly merited at the time. Think about its competitors. The Mustang had the early lead and a massive marketing machine, a cultural icon from day one. The Camaro, backed by the might of Chevrolet, quickly established itself as a formidable challenger. The Javelin was fighting for a slice of a very competitive pie. It had to work harder to get noticed, and while enthusiasts knew its strengths, the general public often gravitated towards the more familiar names. It's a classic story of David versus Goliath, and while David might not have outsold Goliath, he certainly landed some impressive punches with the Javelin's performance and style. Today, the AMC Javelin is experiencing a well-deserved renaissance in the restoration culture. Enthusiasts appreciate its unique styling, its racing pedigree, and the fact that it's not another belly-button muscle car you see at every show. Parts availability can be a bit more challenging than for a Mustang or Camaro, but there's a dedicated community of AMC lovers out there who are passionate about keeping these cars on the road. Prices have been climbing, especially for the high-performance models and special editions like the AMX, which was a shortened two-seat version based on the Javelin platform. It's a car that offers a genuine muscle car experience with a unique story and a whole lot of character. A true gem. Next up, let's talk about a car that often gets saddled with a bit of an unfair label. The Porsche 944. For years you'd hear people call it the budget Porsche, or the poor man's 911. And sure, when it was new, starting in 1982, it was more accessible than its iconic rear-engine sibling. But to dismiss the 944 as just a lesser Porsche is to completely miss the point of what a brilliantly engineered and incredibly well-balanced sports car it truly is. This machine was a product of Porsche's dedication to performance and handling, and it delivered in spades, offering a driving experience that could, in some ways, even surpass the 911 of its era, especially for less experienced drivers. The 944 evolved from the earlier 924, but it was a significant step up. Porsche developed its own engine for the 944, a robust inline-4, initially a 2.5-liter, which was essentially half of the 928's V8. What really set the 944 apart, and contributed massively to its superb handling, was its transaxle layout. The engine was in the front, but the transmission was in the rear, connected by a torque tube. This gave the car near-perfect 50-50 weight distribution, which is the holy grail for handling. You could really feel that balance when you pushed it through corners. It was predictable, communicative, and incredibly rewarding to drive. Its main competitors at the time were cars like the Mazda RX-7, the Nissan 300ZX, and even some American sports coupes. While those were all capable machines, the 944 brought a level of engineering refinement and handling prowess that was pure Porsche. The build quality was typically German solid and precise. The flared wheel arches gave it a muscular, purposeful stance that was much more aggressive than the 924 it was based on. It looked the part, and it definitely had the performance to back it up, especially as the model line evolved. Over its production run, which lasted until 1991, the 944 saw several fantastic iterations. There was the 944S with a 16-valve head for more power, then the 944S2, which got a bigger 3.0-liter engine, one of the largest four-cylinders in a production car at the time. And of course, we can't forget the legendary 944 Turbo, or 951, as it's known by its internal project number. The Turbo was a serious performance machine, capable of challenging much more exotic and expensive cars. Its acceleration was thrilling, and it retained that wonderful chassis balance, making it a formidable weapon on both road and track. So why the budget tag and the underrated status for so long? Well, Porsche itself was very protective of the 911's halo status. The front-engined, water-cooled cars like the 924, 944, and 928 were, for some purists, not real Porsches because they deviated from the traditional rear-engine air-cooled formula. This snobbery, frankly, meant that many overlooked the sheer competence of the 944. Also, as they aged and depreciated, they did become quite affordable, which perhaps reinforced the budget image, even though their engineering and performance were top-notch. Today, the Porsche 944 is finally getting the recognition it deserves. People are realizing what a fantastic classic sports car it is, offering a genuine Porsche experience with excellent driving dynamics and relatively robust mechanicals. The restoration culture around the 944 is thriving. Parts are generally available, though some specific trim pieces or turbo components can be pricey. They make great track day cars, comfortable tours, and stylish daily drivers. Good examples, especially turbos and S2S, are appreciating in value, but you can still find decent cars for reasonable money. It's a smart buy for anyone who values engineering, handling, and a pure driving connection. A truly brilliant machine that punched well above its perceived weight. Now let's shift gears and head over to Sweden for a car that beautifully blended style, durability, and a touch of unexpected glamour, the Volvo P1800. When you hear Volvo, your first thoughts are probably safety, reliability, boxy station wagons, all very sensible things. And while Volvo certainly built its reputation on those solid virtues, the P1800, launched in 1961, was a gorgeous outlier. A sleek sports coupe that proved Volvo could do elegance and sportiness just as well as they did sturdiness. It was a car that seemed to come from a different part of the company's soul. The P1800's design is timeless. It was penned by Pelle Pettersson, who was working under an Italian design house, Frua, at the time. It has those wonderful Italianate lines, the sweeping curves, the tail fins that were just starting to become a bit more subtle, and a lovely glass house. Early cars were actually assembled by Jensen in the UK before production moved to Sweden. It was a car that turned heads wherever it went, and it looked far more exotic than what people typically expected from Volvo. It had a charm that was both sophisticated and approachable. Of course, one of the P1800's biggest claims to fame, and what really catapulted it into the public consciousness, was its starring role in the British TV series The Saint, where Roger Moore as Simon Templar drove a white P1800. This association gave the car an aura of cool sophistication and adventure. It was perfect casting. The car looked suave, dependable, and just a little bit different, much like the character himself. This on-screen presence undoubtedly helped sales and cemented its image as a stylish grand tourer. Underneath that beautiful skin, though, was pure Volvo robustness. The P1800 used proven mechanical components from the Volvo Amazon 122 series, including the legendary B18 engine, later the B20. These engines were known for their incredible durability. In fact, a 1966 Volvo P1800S owned by Irv Gordon famously clocked over 3 million miles. A Guinness World Record for the highest mileage driven by a single owner in a non-commercial vehicle. That tells you everything you need to know about the underlying engineering and build quality of these cars. They were built to last, and then some, so why was it perhaps underrated compared to, say, an MGB or a Triumph TR? Part of it might be that Volvo's core brand identity was so strongly associated with safety and practicality that a sporty coupe seemed a bit out of character for some buyers at the time. It wasn't necessarily the cheapest sports car on the market either. While it offered a lot of style and incredible longevity, it perhaps didn't have the raw, edgy performance of some of its British or Italian counterparts in the eyes of the hardcore sports car enthusiast, focusing more on comfortable, reliable grand touring. Today, the Volvo P1800 is a highly sought-after classic. Its beautiful design has aged incredibly well, and its reputation for reliability makes it a very usable classic car. The restoration scene is active, and there's good club support. Parts availability is generally decent, though some specific trim pieces for early Jensen-built cars can be harder to find and more expensive. Later models like the P1800E with fuel injection and the P1800ES Sport Wagon with its distinctive all-glass hatch are particularly prized. It's a car that offers a unique combination of stunning looks, legendary durability, and a touch of 60s cool. A true testament to Swedish engineering and design flair. Alright, let's talk about a car that wasn't just ahead of its time, it was practically from another planet when it first appeared. I'm talking about the Citroen DS. Specifically, we'll look at the DS21, a later, more powerful iteration of this revolutionary machine. When the original DS19 was unveiled at the Paris Motor Show in 1955, it caused an absolute sensation. People were stunned. It looked like nothing else on the road, and its technology was equally mind-blowing. This was a car that rewrote the rulebook on automotive design and engineering. The most striking thing about the DS, and the feature it's most famous for, is its hydropneumatic suspension. This system used a combination of hydraulic fluid and compressed gas to provide an incredibly smooth ride, regardless of the road surface. It was self-leveling, meaning the car maintained its ride height, whether it was empty or fully loaded. You could even raise or lower the car with a lever inside, which was handy for changing a tire. You'd just raise it up, put a stand under it, and then lower it so the wheel lifted off the ground. It was pure genius, though some found it overly complex. The styling, by Flaminio Bertoni, was equally radical. It was incredibly aerodynamic for its era, with a low nose, a tapering tail, and covered rear wheels on most models. The roof panel was often made of fiberglass or aluminum to lower the center of gravity. Then there were the innovative features. On later models like the DS21, you had directional headlights that swiveled with the steering, illuminating your path around corners. It had a single-spoke steering wheel designed for safety, and a unique semi-automatic gearbox in many versions, where you shifted gears with a lever, but there was no clutch pedal. The DS21, introduced in the mid-1960s, featured a more powerful 2.1-liter engine, hence the 21, giving it better performance to match its advanced capabilities. It was a supremely comfortable long-distance cruiser, capable of wafting along at high speeds while occupants felt like they were floating on a cloud. This car was a favorite of French presidents and dignitaries, and it developed a reputation for saving President Charles de Gaulle's life during an assassination attempt, because its superior handling allowed the driver to escape even with punctured tires. That's a heck of an endorsement. So why would such an advanced and iconic car be considered underrated, at least in some markets, particularly the US? Well, that very complexity which made it brilliant also made it intimidating for many mechanics and owners unfamiliar with its systems. The hydropneumatics required specialized knowledge to maintain and repair. Citroen's dealer network in some countries wasn't as strong, and the unconventional styling, while lauded by designers, could be polarizing for mainstream buyers accustomed to more traditional American or British cars. It was, in many ways, too advanced for its own good in terms of mass-market acceptance outside of Europe. Today, the Citroën DS is a true icon of automotive design and engineering. It regularly tops polls of the most beautiful or most influential cars ever made. The restoration culture is strong, though it's definitely a car for the dedicated enthusiast or someone willing to find a specialist. Parts can be sourced, but expertise is key. Values for good examples, especially desirable models like the convertibles, decapotable, or the high-performance Palace versions, are very high. Owning and driving a DS is a unique experience, unlike anything else. It's a rolling piece of art, a testament to a time when a car company dared to completely rethink what a car could be. A true goddess of the road. Now here's a fascinating machine with a bit of an identity crisis, but a heart of gold, or rather, a heart of Ferrari. I'm talking about the Fiat Dino Coupe. Launched in 1967, this car, along with its Spider sibling, existed for one very specific and important reason: to homologate Ferrari's new V6 engine for Formula 2 racing. Enzo Ferrari needed to produce at least 500 road cars with this engine to meet the racing regulations, and Ferrari themselves didn't have the capacity to build that many engines or cars quickly enough. So they struck a deal with Fiat. The engine in question was the all-aluminum quad-cam Dino V6, designed by Alfredo Dino Ferrari, Enzo's beloved son, before his untimely passing, and further developed by the legendary Vittorio Jano. Initially a 2-liter, it later grew to 2.4 liters. This was a jewel of an engine, rev-happy and full of character, with a wonderful sound. Fiat agreed to build the engines and put them into two of their own sports cars, the Fiat Dino Spider, styled by Pininfarina, and the Fiat Dino Coupe, which we're focusing on here, with its elegant lines penned by Giorgetto Giugiaro at Bertone. The Fiat Dino Coupe was a beautiful 2+2 Grand Tourer. It had a sophisticated, understated elegance that was very much in the Bertone style of the era. It was longer and more practical than the Spider, with a proper trunk and usable rear seats, making it a more versatile machine. Inside it was well appointed for a Fiat, with a sporty dashboard and comfortable seating. But the real star, of course, was that Ferrari-designed V6 engine. It gave the Fiat Dino a level of performance and an exotic soundtrack that was completely unexpected from a car wearing a Fiat badge. Now the underrated aspect comes in because despite having a genuine Ferrari engine, it was still a Fiat. It didn't carry the prancing horse emblem, and therefore it didn't have the same cachet or command the same prices as the Ferrari-badged Dino 206 GT and 246 GT GTS, which used the same V6 engine, albeit in a mid-mounted configuration for the Ferraris. For many years the Fiat Dinos were seen as the lesser Dinos, even though they shared that incredible power plant and offered their own unique Italian charm and driving pleasure. The Fiat Dino Coupe, especially the later 2.4-liter versions, which also got an improved ZF gearbox and independent rear suspension from the Fiat 130, was a fantastic car to drive. It had that wonderful Italian GT feel, comfortable enough for long journeys, but sporty enough to be engaging on a twisty road. The engine was the centerpiece, begging to be revved, and the handling was competent for a front-engined car of its era. It was a car that offered a taste of the exotic without the stratospheric prices or sometimes temperamental nature of a full-blown Ferrari. Today, the Fiat Dino Coupe is finally getting the respect it deserves. Collectors and enthusiasts have recognized the significance of its Ferrari connection and the beauty of its Bertone design. Prices have risen considerably, though they generally still trail those of the Ferrari Dinos. Restoration can be a significant undertaking, as with many Italian cars of this era. While the Fiat mechanicals, aside from the engine, are relatively straightforward, that special V6 requires expert attention, and parts for it can be expensive. However, a well-sorted Fiat Dino Coupe is a joy to own and drive, a stylish and sonorous piece of Italo-Ferrari history, a true connoisseur's classic. Let's talk about a recipe that, when done right, is absolutely spectacular. Take a beautifully tailored Italian suit and stuff it with good old American muscle. That's exactly what you got with the Eso Griffo. Eso Rivolta was a company that started out making refrigerators and motor scooters like the Isetta bubble car, which they licensed to BMW. But in the 1960s, Renzo Rivolta decided he wanted to build high-performance grand touring cars, and the Griffo, launched in 1965, was his masterpiece, a true thoroughbred. The Griffo was a stunning piece of design. The initial concept came from Giotto Bizzarini, the brilliant engineer who had worked on the Ferrari 250 GTO. The production styling was refined by Giorgetto Giugiaro at Bertone. It was low, wide, aggressive, yet incredibly elegant, a real head-turner. Underneath that gorgeous Italian bodywork, however, beat an American heart. Iso chose reliable and powerful V8 engines from Chevrolet, specifically the 327 cubic inch, or 5.4-liter, small block, and later, the mighty 427 and 454 big blocks. This combination offered exotic looks and performance with relatively unstressed and easy-to-maintain mechanicals. This Italian-American hybrid approach was quite popular in the 60s and 70s with brands like Detomaso and Jensen, but Eso did it with a particular flair and a focus on high-speed, long-distance luxury. The Griffo was not a raw, stripped-out sports car. It was a sophisticated GT designed to cover continents at high speed and in great comfort. The interior was beautifully finished with leather and wood, and it had all the amenities you'd expect from a luxury car of the era. It was a car for the discerning enthusiast who wanted Ferrari-level style and performance without the Ferrari-level complexity or temperament. So why is the Eso Griffo not as universally famous as a contemporary Ferrari or Lamborghini? Part of it is down to production numbers. These were very exclusive hand-built cars, so not many were made, only around 400 Griffos in total over its production run, which lasted until 1974. Eso was a small company without the massive racing heritage or marketing budget of Ferrari. While Bizzarini did develop a more hardcore racing version, the Bizzarini A3/C, which was essentially a Griffo competition car, Eso itself wasn't as deeply entrenched in motorsport as its Italian rivals, which often builds that legendary status. The Griffo also faced stiff competition. The market for ultra-expensive GT cars was crowded with established names. Buyers in this segment were often looking for that purebred Italian mystique, and some might have seen the American V8 as less exotic, even though it provided tremendous, reliable power. However, those who knew, knew. The Griffo was a phenomenal machine, especially the later Series 2 Can-Am cars with the 7-liter or 427 Chevy V8, or the ultimate Griffo 7-liter with the 454. These were seriously fast cars, capable of over 170 miles per hour. Today, the Eso Griffo is a blue-chip classic, highly prized by collectors. Its rarity, stunning looks, and potent performance make it incredibly desirable. Restoration is a top-tier affair. While the American powertrain components are relatively easy to source, the bespoke Italian bodywork and trim require specialist skills and can be very expensive to restore correctly. Finding a good Griffo is difficult, and buying one is a significant investment. But for those who can, it represents a fantastic blend of Italian artistry and American engineering prowess. A true connoisseur's GT that stands shoulder to shoulder with the best of its era. It's a car that whispers exclusivity rather than shouting it. let's move on to a car that's a perfect example of clever, innovative engineering wrapped in a beautifully understated package, the Lancia Fulvia Coupe. Lancia, for much of its history, was a company renowned for its technical ingenuity and high-quality construction. The Fulvia, introduced in Berlina, sedan form in 1963, with the stunning coupe following in 1965, was a prime example of this tradition. It might not have had the brute force of some of its contemporaries, but it had a finesse and a character all its own. The heart of the Fulvia Coupe, and what made it so unique, was its narrow-angle V4 engine. We're talking a V-angle of just under 13 degrees for the initial 1.2-liter versions, growing slightly as displacement increased to 1.3 and then 1.6 liters. This compact engine was mounted longitudinally, but canted over on its side and drove the front wheels. Front-wheel drive was still relatively uncommon for sporty cars in the mid-60s, but Lancia mastered it, giving the Fulvia excellent traction and wonderfully precise handling. It was a delight to drive, very nimble and responsive. The styling of the Fulvia Coupe, penned by Lancia's own Piero Castagnero, was simply exquisite. It was elegant, perfectly proportioned, with a light and airy greenhouse thanks to its slim pillars. It didn't shout for attention, it had a quiet confidence and a timeless beauty that still looks fantastic today. Inside it was typically Lancia, well appointed with quality materials, a beautiful wood-rimmed steering wheel in many versions, and clear, functional instrumentation. It felt like a premium product, a small car built to very high standards. The Fulvia Coupe really came into its own, and gained international fame through its incredible success in rallying. The high-performance Fulvia Coupe HF models, often sporting an Elefantino Rosso, little red elephant badge, became legendary in the rally world, winning the International Championship for Manufacturers, the precursor to the WRC, in 1972. These HFs were lightened, more powerful versions, and they showcased the inherent strength and superb handling balance of the Fulvia platform. Names like Sandro Mugnari became synonymous with Lancia and the Fulvia's rally prowess. So why is such a brilliant and successful car often overlooked, particularly outside of Italy and dedicated classic car circles? Well, Lancia as a brand, unfortunately, faded from prominence in many markets over the years, especially after its acquisition by Fiat in 1969. The complexity of some of its engineering, while innovative, could also be perceived as a maintenance hurdle by those not familiar with Lancias. And perhaps its understated elegance didn't grab headlines in the same way as more flamboyant sports cars of the era. It was a car for those who appreciated subtlety and engineering depth. Today, the Lancia Fulvia Coupe is enjoying a strong resurgence in popularity. Enthusiasts are drawn to its beautiful design, its engaging driving experience, and its rich rally heritage. The restoration culture is very active, with good specialist support available, particularly in Europe. Parts availability is generally quite good, though some specific HF components can be rare and costly. Prices for good examples have been steadily climbing, especially for genuine HF models which are highly sought after. It's a car that rewards a discerning owner with a truly unique and enjoyable classic motoring experience. A little gem of Italian engineering and style. Alright, let's talk about a car that brought mid-engine exotic looks and American V8 power to a wider audience, albeit with a few teething troubles along the way, the Detomaso Pantera. Launched in 1971, the Pantera, Italian for Panther, was the brainchild of Alejandro Detomaso, an Argentinian entrepreneur based in Italy. It succeeded the earlier Detomaso Mangusta, and was designed from the outset to be more mass-producible, thanks to a crucial partnership with Ford Motor Company, who planned to sell the car through its Lincoln Mercury dealerships in the US. The Pantera had all the visual drama you'd expect from an Italian supercar of the era. The stunning wedge-shaped styling came from Tom Ciarda at Ghia, and it looked every bit the exotic. Low, wide, with a sharply raked windscreen and those classic pop-up headlights, it screamed performance. And crucially, it had a mid-mounted engine for optimal weight distribution and handling. Just like the Ferraris and Lamborghinis it aimed to compete with, or at least offer an alternative to. This layout was still quite novel for a car sold in relatively large numbers. The American part of the equation was the engine, a robust Ford 351 Cleveland V8, a 5.8-liter powerhouse known for its torque and reliability. This was mated to a ZF 5-speed transaxle, similar to what was used in the Ford GT40 and BMW M1. The idea was to combine Italian exotic design with a reliable, powerful, and relatively easy-to-service American powertrain. This made it, in theory, more approachable and less temperamental than some of its purely Italian contemporaries. Ford's involvement also meant a much larger sales and service network, at least initially in the US. However, the early Panteras, especially those rushed into production to meet Ford's deadlines, did suffer from some well-documented issues. Build quality could be inconsistent, and overheating was a common complaint in hotter climates. Rust protection wasn't always the best either. These early teething problems unfortunately tarnished the Pantera's reputation somewhat, even though Detomaso and Ford worked to address many of them in later production cars. Ford eventually ended its official involvement in 1974, but Detomaso continued to produce the Pantera in various forms, with continuous improvements, all the way into the early 1990s. Despite those initial hiccups, the Detomaso Pantera was and is a thrilling car to drive. That big Ford V8 right behind your ears provides a visceral soundtrack and a mountain of torque. When properly sorted, the handling is excellent, very much in the mid-engine supercar mold. Later versions like the GT5 and GT5S with their wide fender flares and aggressive wings looked even more outrageous and offered enhanced performance. Elvis Presley famously owned a Pantera, and legend has it, shot it when it wouldn't start, which probably says more about Elvis's temper than the car's reliability by that point. Today, the Detomaso Pantera has a very strong and dedicated following. The restoration culture is robust, and because of the Ford powertrain, many mechanical parts are readily available and relatively affordable. Body parts and specific Italian trim pieces can be more challenging, but the owner community is very supportive. Prices for Panteras have been climbing steadily as people appreciate their exotic looks, V8 performance, and unique Italian-American heritage. A well-sorted Pantera is a fantastic classic supercar experience, offering a lot of bang for the buck compared to contemporary mid-engine Ferraris or Lamborghinis. It's a car with a fascinating story and a whole lot of attitude. For our final underrated gem, let's head to Germany and look at a car that embodies Bavarian elegance and sporting prowess. The BMW E9 Coupe, specifically the 3.0 CS and its variants. Produced from 1968 to 1975, the E9 chassis was home to some of the most beautiful coupes BMW has ever made. These cars combined graceful styling with a wonderfully smooth and powerful straight-six engine, offering a sophisticated grand touring experience that was perhaps a bit overshadowed at the time by the sheer dominance of Porsche in the German sports car arena. The styling of the E9 Coupe is simply breathtaking. It was designed by Wilhelm Hofmeister, yes, of the famous Hofmeister Kink C-pillar design queue, and Carmen, who also built the bodies. It's a pillarless coupe, meaning there's no B-pillar between the front and rear side windows. With all four windows down, it creates this wonderfully open, airy feeling. The slim roofline, the shark-like nose with those quad headlights, and the perfectly balanced proportions make it a timeless classic. It's a design that exudes class and sporting intent without being overly aggressive. Under the hood, the E9S featured BMW's legendary M30 straight-six engine. In the 3.0 CS, this was a 3.0-liter unit with twin carburetors, producing around 180 horsepower. Later came the 3.0 CSI with Bosch D-Jetronic fuel injection, bumping power up to around 200 horsepower. This engine is renowned for its smoothness, its willingness to rev, and its turbine-like sound. Mated to either a manual or automatic transmission, it provided brisk performance and made the E9 a delightful car for spirited driving on open roads or comfortable long-distance cruising. The E9 platform also gave birth to one of the most iconic racing homologation specials ever, the 3.0 CSL, the L standing for light or lightweight. These cars had aluminum body panels, thinner steel, perspex windows, and stripped-out interiors to save weight for racing. The later Batmobile versions, with their wild aerodynamic wings and spoilers, dominated touring car racing in Europe in the 1970s, cementing BMW's performance credibility and paving the way for the M division. While the CSL is now a highly prized and expensive collector's item, its glory definitely cast a halo over the entire E9 range. So why might the standard 3.0 CS or CSI be considered underrated, or at least less universally recognized on the classic car stage than, say, a contemporary Porsche 911? Well, Porsche had already established a very strong identity with the 911 as definitive German sports car. BMW, while respected for its sedans and the earlier Neue Klasse coupes, was still building its reputation in the high-performance coupe segment. Also, the E9 coupes, while beautifully built, were unfortunately quite susceptible to rust, which claimed many examples over the years, making good survivors rarer and more valuable today. The restoration culture for BMW E9 coupes is now very strong. Enthusiasts adore their beautiful lines and engaging driving dynamics. However, that aforementioned rust issue means that restoration can be a very expensive undertaking if you start with a rough car. Body panels and bright work can be costly. Mechanically, the M30 engine is robust and parts are generally available. Values for good 3.0 CS and CSI models have risen significantly as people recognize their beauty and importance. They represent a golden era for BMW design and engineering, offering a sophisticated and rewarding classic driving experience. A truly elegant machine that deserves all the admiration it gets. Well, there you have it, folks. A look at just a few of the fantastic classic cars that, for one reason or another, have spent some time flying under the radar. From American muscle with a unique twist like the Javelin, to innovative European engineering marvels like the Citroen DS or the Lancia Fulvia, each one of these machines has a compelling story and a unique character. Discovering these hidden gems, learning about their history, and seeing the passion that owners and restorers pour into them is what makes this hobby so incredibly rewarding. It's a reminder that the automotive world is vast and full of surprises. These cars prove that a vehicle's value isn't just tied to its fame or its original sales numbers. It's about the ingenuity of its design, the thrill of its performance, the era it represents, and the connection it makes with the people who drive and cherish it. Whether it's the Ferrari heart in a Fiat Dino, or the surprising stamina of a Volvo P1800, each one offers a distinct flavor of classic motoring. They remind us that sometimes the most interesting stories are found just off the beaten path, and there's a whole world of incredible machinery out there waiting to be appreciated. So, I hope you enjoyed this journey through some of the unsung heroes of the classic car world. What are some of your favorite underrated classics? Let me know in the comments below. And hey, if you like this video and want to see more deep dives into automotive history, cool restorations, and all things with wheels, make sure to follow us here on YouTube and check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok for more content. We've always got something interesting cooking in the garage. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.